Have you ever considered that in every collapse, there's an opportunity to regenerate and reorder a new paradigm? In this mini-series, Collapsing into Wholeness, we're uncovering the gems within the pattern of destruction as transformation. I'm Victoria McMahon, and when women work with me, they are held and guided, being led into life's deeper intelligence.
And I'm Danielle YS. I guide high-achieving women through life and career transitions so they can befriend the unknown and step into their next chapter with clarity, courage, and curiosity.
Welcome back to YSM Conversations. We're opening up the last segment of our series, Collapsing into Wholeness. It's been rich and depthful in the ways in which we experience the collapse that comes as ways of being are destroyed and generated. From that generative nature, the universe orders and finds the next new wholeness of itself. That includes us and all other beings finding new ordering. Today's conversation is how do we talk about wholeness and moving into the next wholeness? It's through this idea that everything orders and reorders itself in this destroying, generating, ordering process. One of the things in the last segment was this idea of buoyancy. Danielle talked about this feeling how the bottom just drops out in the collapse. The body orients naturally in a clenching. What if we could relax a bit, unclench a bit? We find the sense of float, the sense of buoyancy. We want to spend some time today in integrating how we move to our next greater wholeness is in finding buoyancy. And that doesn't mean that we're always in buoyancy. It means that we're feeling the fluctuation through the feeling of buoyancy. I wanted to share a story to open up. I was nudged to get on the table with a cranial massage therapist who works in this quantum field of intelligence where buoyancy is its natural way of being, the ebb and flow of everything. And what was delightful about this work was the intention of a nervous system reset for my physical body, and also to be in a deeper listening of my energy body. Now my energy may be fluid or stagnant and may need a different ordering pattern to evolve. What naturally arose without either of us really doing, she was doing the craniosacral work and I was doing breathing and listening. We found ourselves in this dance, and I would be reporting my experience in the physical body, in imagery, in memory, whatever was rising as she was working the craniosacral fluid of the body. At one point, I said, I have this image of myself rolled up in a fetal position. And she said, I'm working in your birthing process right now, and you really want it out quickly. And I said, yes, true, according to my mother's story, to get to the hospital in time to birth me. So we started with this dance and then let it flow. I could feel the weight of my body at some moments, and then the lightness, the same with my mind, reporting, and then letting my mind just go and being in the higher mind consciousness and coming back and saying, I don't know where I was, but it was really delightful. And her saying, yes, I was with you as you were floating into other aspects of your consciousness. I said, you're in my lineage and I'm experiencing grief from this lineage. She said, yes. And I'm clearing the line and working with that so you can let it be. My whole body just relaxed into a float space. So those are three different ways that I track the ordering of movement in myself with another human being. And that is so much how we talk about collapsing into wholeness. It's natural and innate to our being. Respond what you notice in yourself or in the story.
The network effect is really what comes through for me. We are so deeply interconnected with each other, and we don't acknowledge it enough. We think that we are so separated from each other, but we feel each other's energy. We feel each other's thoughts. We know what is coming through for other people and for ourselves without having it be a conscious conversation or exchange of communication with each other. What's coming through from your story is that when we can acknowledge that and then hone those skills and share that ability with other people, we unlock so much possibility when we can just be in that space with each other and not have it be something that we understand or that we consciously know or talk about. With the therapist that you were talking about, working on your birthing canal and you were floating in fetal position. That's that connection without having to talk about it. Like with some of my Reiki clients, I'll get this energy and just have to say something out loud. And it's exactly the thing that someone needed to hear in that moment. I don't even want to call it a skill because it's an innate thing that we all carry with us and that we tend to shut down. We tend not to share what we feel or hear or whatever these clairsentient, clairvoyant, whatever you want to call it, traits are because it feels different or it feels not acceptable by society. But when we do, there's so much power in there.
How you oriented to that reminded me of other conversations about what it means to collapse into wholeness. This notion of empathy, of this glue that we talked about previously, and how collapsing into our wholeness asks us to trust in the glue of who we are in ourselves and our connection to the greater field of intelligence and who we are with one another in the shared experience of it. In that invitation to trust, we are so much more able to make choices that allow us to be in this sense of collapse. I'm reordering with you in this series, and hopefully others see this too, is that collapse into wholeness. The very meaning of collapse may be reordering for all of us. That's important to say that out loud. That's why we intentionally named this series, to reorder what collapse is for us.
One of the pieces that we've been working on weaving through our mini series on collapsing into wholeness is that support and connection that we have with others, whether it's other humans, whether it's consciousness, a universe, and that imagery of the glue and the web that you're talking about woven throughout is also just so beautiful in that it does feel pretty amniotic and like a womb or being held in all directions. It's not just this structure underneath us, it's in all directions. And that allows us then also to move in all directions. We just have to reorient and choose what we want our perspective to be, what we want our orientation to be. And we get that choice because we don't have to hold on to the old structures that have been created for us. We can move into something new, something different that maybe we haven't thought of before. It's arising through our conversations and through the way that we interact with each other without having to intellectually interact.
I appreciate you saying not intellectually interacting, because when I think back to this craniosacral experience, there was no analysis, there was no intellect in the room, it was observing. And I think that's a key that we've talked about in multiple conversations, that choosing observing as your orienting place supports being able to be in the collapse into wholeness. You and I were talking about it previously, this clench that automatically, it may be a biological response. I think about yoga philosophy and the idea of we will hold on to our life to the very last breath. It's that same idea of the clench. And as the bottom drops out in whatever that bottom is for us, and we feel this response, we have that choice, as you said, to pause, to breathe, and to feel the clench and then let it dissolve. And that feels to me like the destroying aspect. Let it dissolve is a destroying of an energy. Then what happens in that generates, and then we see how it orders or reorders and reorients. I can feel the fluidity of this process that we're in all the time. Like you were saying, it just morphs into different variations. We're always in a cycle, whether it's the cycle of our breath or the cycle of a day or an experience we're having. Trained in Gestalt therapy, we had the Gestalt cycle of experience, the process that you go through to complete an experience in a wholeness. And I can see different language points of view. It's the destroying, it's the generating, it's the ordering of each experience. I wonder how you integrate these pieces, this non-form into form that we talked about previously too. Is there anything that comes for you in that?
It's so interesting because as you're talking about the cycle and completion, what comes to me is that the cycle that we've been working with over this mini series, the generating, ordering, destroying, is there's no point in that cycle that we're not present with the cycle. It's very natural of something is being generated, something is being ordered, something is being destroyed. And it's not about what comes next necessarily. It's about the process of being in process. And that's what's been pulling me because as humans in the society that we live in, that's so focused on next step, taking action, being an achiever. It feels like what is calling and wanting to be heard is presence. And let's be with the destroying. Let's be with the generating. Let's be with the ordering. That is what matters most. It's not about what it becomes. It's about being with the becoming.
As we look at the word collapse, I'm reordering that language to a new form, another form of itself, generating, ordering, destroying. In another community, we use generating, organizing, design, which are the same principles, and it's a GOD. We have this unique design from creation itself that if we are, as you said, fully present to being in the process of this generating, organizing design, this generating, ordering, destroying way of being, then we are in the integration of who we are in moving to the next greater wholeness. And that happens naturally through every experience. So it's not about an experience being labeled in any way. It's about becoming through the experience of life in every moment. And we can look at different aspects of the experience in the generating process, in the ordering process, in the destroying process. We're observing how it's moving and how we're moving in the self to become more of the self. We can remember who we are.
And isn't it so interesting that with your other framework and this framework, both of the GODs, that destroying is also design. It's not an accident. It is by design that things are destroyed or what we see as destroyed, but it's really just changing form and then shifting into another form. If we look at seasonal cycles or cycles of life with plants, in the spring, the plant blossoms, and then over the summer, it continues to grow, and in the fall, it loses its leaves, and the leaves become food for the next seed. That destroying isn't bad, and it's not evil, and it's not negative. It's just part of that order of things and the cycle of things. And when we reorient around that, we gain so much freedom and buoyancy, because it's not so much seeing destruction as a dark thing or something that we need to prevent or move away from or protect ourselves from. Instead, it is an invitation into another shape, another form. And to be cliche, it's the phoenix. It goes up into flames and then from its ashes is reborn again.
And it's the oxidation.
The great oxidation event.
I even shared that with a family member in a conversation. I'm still integrating how amazing that fits in with who we are and how we become, what's the next new orienting that we are becoming, and how we stay in that process. And that idea of we're in the buoyancy when we stay fully present to this process and committed to it. We know that we trust it always moves us to the next greater whole. Those are the ordering principles of the universe. I would invite everyone who's listened to this series, try it out and see, do you feel that trust in it as you look at what is generating, ordering, destroying in an experience that you're having, and see, can you feel that web, that glue underneath, that it is all ordering? And we might have opinions about it, but not to stay opinionated.
Because those opinions become separations, holding us back from being held by the web, by the glue.
They clench.
They clench.
Notice when you have opinions, what is your body doing? That's a really good tool for practicing moving towards the buoyancy and the generating, ordering, destroying process, that you'll feel the clench when you're not in the ebb and the flow. And you can get so good at watching the process that it becomes more and more in your remembrance. Your body knows to do it. Mind and emotions just want to track back to that innate way of being.
And in those moments of clench, can you observe it, be with it, and in that observing, notice that when we don't try to change it, when we don't try to continue it or push it away, it opens up naturally into that invitation of collapse. Not for the sake of collapsing, but for the sake of completing the cycle, continuing the cycle.
Whether it's a little experience or a big experience, it's the same process. That's important to acknowledge.
Because the small dissolutions, the small collapses that happen are rehearsals for the bigger collapses that happen through our lifetimes, through the lifetime of humanity, of our planet, of all the beings on it. And the more we can practice noticing that clenching and observing it to the point where it can release naturally and reveal what's next naturally without us forcing it, without us trying to control it or figure it out, that is how we move through the thresholds and the crossings in a way that is in service of and on behalf of everyone, everything.
Integration of previous conversations we've had of the brifwa or the phone, and how we use those tools when the clench is upon us. It isn't who we are. The clench is upon us, and we have ways to be with the clench that, as you said, and is so important, that we give it the space to be there instead of push it away. We invite it to be fully present in a way that we can move with it, whether that's breathe, feel, observe, allow, or physically run our finger around the edges of the phone as we breathe. Those are ways to be with it, that all of us need the toolbox in order to shift into the state of moving with the natural order.
Beautifully said. I love that phrase. The clench is upon us. If someone could please make a shirt out of that, I am in on the order.
Thank you, universe, for popping that one into the field today. May the force be with you. The clench is upon us. May the force be with you.
I like it. The clench is upon us. May the collapse be with you.
So fun. And a good laugh will always give the clench permission to let go a little.
Absolutely. And this feels like such a beautiful place to wrap things up for this series. These are heavy topics, serious topics, or we tend to make them feel really heavy and serious, and we can infuse them with lightness because it's meant to be light. It's meant to be part of the journey, part of the cycle. And so allowing ourselves to laugh as we dive into these deeper topics is part of the process, and it's totally allowed.
If you've loved listening to this conversation, please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, follow us, comment, share with us your experiences of being in your own generating, ordering, destroying process and how you experience it. We'd love to hear from you. Until our next series begins.
Thank you for diving deep into YSM conversations with us. If this stirred something in you, subscribe to keep discovering with us. And if someone came to mind while listening, share this episode with them. We are meant to move through life together.
We are Danielle YS and Victoria McMahon, sharing story with you on behalf of seeding our next collective chapter.